Hello. Now we'll see what are autonomous items and accommodating items. The transactions recorded in the balance of payments accounts can be categorized as autonomous transactions and accommodating transactions. Autonomous transactions refer to they are the transactions which take place due to some economic motives such as profit maximization, and they are known as above line items. They are independent of the BOP account. These are the features of autonomous items. If a foreign currency wants to make investment in India with the aim of making profit, such a transaction is independent of BOP. Autonomous transaction takes place both on current account and capital account. So current account merchandise, export and import of goods, and capital account you find receipts and payments of long-term loans by private individuals. So BOP is in surplus when autonomous receipts are more than the autonomous payments. BOP is in deficit when autonomous receipts are less than autonomous payments. What are accommodating items? The transaction which are undertaken to cover deficit or surplus in autonomous transactions. Such transactions are determined by net consequences of autonomous transactions. They are known as below the line items and you find them on capital account only. Accommodating transactions are compensating capital transactions which are meant to correct disequilibrium in autonomous items of balance of payment. If there is a current account deficit in BOP, then the deficit is settled by capital inflow from abroad. So how do you get the inflow? Capital inflow from abroad from two sources. One is foreign exchange reserve, the other one is borrowings from IMF or foreign monetary authorities. So that's it is accommodating item. So let me see the features or differences between autonomous and accommodating items once again. Autonomous, international economic transaction which take place due to economic motive, that is profit maximization. Accommodating items refer to cover the deficit or surplus in autonomous transaction. Then autonomous transactions are independent of BOP account. Accommodating items are undertaken to maintain the balance in BOP, that is when there is a deficit or surplus. Autonomous transactions take place on both current and capital, whereas accommodative takes place only on capital account. Autonomous items are known as above the line items and accommodating items are known as below the line items. So whenever there is a disequilibrium due to deficit or surplus, you find the accommodating items are brought in. A surplus in BOP does not pose much problem, whereas deficit often creates economic problems for a country. Deficit in balance of payment account arises when total inflows on account of autonomous transactions are less than total outflows on account of such transactions. If total inflows on account of autonomous transactions exceed total outflows on account of such transactions, there is surplus in balance of payment. So, what are the reasons for this disequilibrium or deficit in balance of payment? There are economic factors, that is developmental activities. So, we import the technology, we import machineries, so that leads to deficit. Then high rate of inflation. When there is inflation in the domestic economy, foreign goods become cheaper. So it increases imports. So we pay a lot. So outflow is more, so there is deficit. Then cyclical fluctuation. When economy is going through a phase of boom, then the domestic production may be unable to satisfy the domestic demand. So it leads to deficit in BOP because increase in imports. Change in demand. Fall in demand for countries' goods in foreign markets leads to fall in export. So it adversely affects the balance of payment. Import of service. Underdeveloped countries import services from developed countries for which they have to pay huge amounts of money. So that leads to deficit in BOP. And other than economic factors, there are political factors, political instability. So you find it leads to large capital outflows and reduce the inflows of foreign funds. Then political disturbances, that changes in the government, inadequate support to the government in parliament leads to, it discourages the inflows of capital. Then there are social factors. Demonstration effect. When people of underdeveloped countries come in contact with the people of advanced countries, they start adopting the foreign pattern of consumption. So what happens? The imports increase and leads to an adverse balance of payment for underdeveloped country. Then change in taste, preference, fashion and trends. So there is an unfavorable change for the domestic goods, leads to deficit in balance of payment. So all these reasons you find the more outflow of funds. So that is why you find the deficit in BOP.